We've got my partner, Patrick, over here. Kevin, where's Kevin? Alright. We actually also started this. I'm going to do a special shout out as he puts food in his mouth to Steve Hamilli in the back. Steve. Steve was also one of the first people as we put this CEO Cocktails and Conversations event together. He was one of the people who was instrumental in putting it together. And we have started off when it was like 3 people. And Bob was our speaker every month. Where's Bob at? My guy Bob there. Bob is the deal right now. Yo, we're very, very passionate about what we do. We're grateful for the opportunity just to bring up some great speakers. So tonight we're going to play a couple videos, right? Then we'll bring up our speakers, and it's going to be an incredible, incredible session. It's going to be very interactive. We're going to have opportunity to ask some of those really deep, thought-provoking questions to some of the most amazing people who love helping businesses structure and scale their business, develop their business, look at ways to make sure that they're moving the needle in a way that takes their company to massive success in revenue and growth. Okay, so with that said, we're going to get kicked off right here. Thank you.
Sing us a song, Ricky. Yeah,
Oh, yes, no. Actually also, oh wait, hold on. Well, I want to take this moment to also throw a shout out. She is one of our guest speakers tonight, but I want to say thank you and welcome to Alicia Zaklan. She is one of our newest team members. Also one of our other team members going to be up here tonight is going to be Rick Casmus, who's also one of our team members and business advisors. I want to shout out Builders United in the house. Blaze right here. We're ready? All right.
Now I'm going to introduce you to Peak Performance Partners. Now I get to introduce you to Peak Performance Partners. We're a company that has executives with over 200 years of combined experience, working for publicly traded companies such as Verizon, AT&T, and Wyndham Resorts, helping them drive millions in annual sales and creating efficiencies, which, you know, creates greater profits. We've also worked for privately owned companies, helping startup divisions within these companies achieve over $100 million in annual revenues. We've also, each of us, have owned our own companies. Not only do we know what it's like to sign the back of a check, we also know what it's like to sign the front of a check. And that is why we teamed up with the Alternative Board Worldwide, or as we like to call it, TAB. TAB is an organization that is in over 23 countries. It's been around for 30 years, helping business owners and business leaders achieve their ultimate dream. What we do is we put together peer advisory boards made up of business executives from non-competing industries, where we meet once a month and we talk about challenges and opportunities. And then we help each other by going from our background and giving collective wisdom. Can you imagine having 250 to 300 years of experience helping you as you're making decisions? Some of the topics that often come up in some of the boards are this: employee development, new markets, growth strategies, cash flow issues, and legal matters. Guess what? All organizations have these. In addition to the board meetings where we meet once a month, we also do coaching. This is where we come one-on-one with you and your organization. We talk about a great plan for yourself. What is your mission? What's your vision? What's the culture? And what's your brand promise? In addition to the boards, we also have a consulting division. This is where we take a deeper dive with you and your organization. Right now, we are helping organizations develop a strategic plan for 2023 and beyond. If you've never had a strategic planning session, I want to invite you, reach out to us, because setting up a clear vision and then knowing what we're going to execute on and who's going to be accountable in your organization to achieve these goals. Once you document that and set that up and go through our proven process, you're going to see all of those things that you thought were a dream are gonna all of a sudden become real. I'd also like to invite you to tune into our Are You Killing It podcast. This is where we talk to local business owners and find out what are some secrets to how they're killing it. Our goal is to provide an environment for business leaders and owners to connect with new people, reconnect with old friends, and get information from industry experts. We also have a video production team. Does your company have its own video? Something that explains your product or service in such a high professional manner that everybody's going to want to do business with you? Have you ever thought about employee onboarding and doing training videos? What's so important about a training video is, guess what? You get to control the environment and the message that all your new employees are saying. We love being a part of this business community. Industry leading. Have you ever thought about that term? One of the things we do is we help companies identify what are industry leading companies and how did they become that. What I want to encourage you to do is this: don't go alone. Use our 200 years of collective experience to help you and your organization. There's an African proverb that we often refer to. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Please, this business community is made up of companies that are killing it because they're going together. I want you to be one of those. Come join us.
Steal my thunder. You were jealous.
Our first speaker today
All right. On to strategic planning.
You mispronounced that.
So up first, we've got Alicia Zaklan. So Alicia Zaklan has, since 2005, has been helping transform organizations by effectively leveraging people, processes, and technology. She specializes in design for the flow of information and activity within the organization to enable businesses to achieve better outcomes while meeting their strategic objectives. She's a professional business coach and consultant with a breadth and depth of expertise in areas such as organizational excellence, operational excellence, process excellence, strategic planning, leadership development, team design development, and solution design. Y'all, she doesn't really brag on herself a whole lot, but this lady right here is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I'll tell you, she's also consulted for Fortune 10 companies. All right? If anybody knows what that means, you've got the Fortune 1000, Fortune 500, Fortune 50s, Fortune 10s. This woman has been there and has helped create their strategies, their flows to help them really move and succeed. Thank you very much. Let's give it up for Alicia Zaklan. Up next is a dear friend of mine, Oksana Komarnyckyi. Right, this lady right here is dynamic as well. I have known her for years, and I do want to just brag on her for a moment and tell you that she has helped business owners. She works in the M&A space, mergers and acquisitions, and I'll read a little bit about her bio, but I do want to just take a moment and tell you, you are one of the most authentic, genuine, real people I've ever got the pleasure of meeting and knowing. In your heart to help business owners prepare their business for exit, to really put them in a place to get them to the success and the dreams they want to have, it's second to none. You are genuine through and through. I want to thank you for that. So I want to cover it real quick. She's a managing director with IBG. Fox & Finn has over 25 years experience guiding businesses through every stage of their lives, from startup to growth to exit. She has worked in the trenches as well in the corporate boardroom. As an M&A advisor, Oksana focuses on assisting privately held companies and their owners maximize value while maintaining harmony among stakeholders. Let's give it up for Oksana. Now my man, Rick Casmus, my brother from another mother. I gotta tell you, this guy is, if you have the pleasure of getting to know him, getting to meet him, he loves to serve. He serves at church, he serves his people, he serves his community. He's a Henderson Chamber ambassador. This guy is also a peak performance partner, business advisor. He's the real deal as well, and I'm just honored to be his friend and to have him associate with our brand and our company. Rick Cassis brings over 25 years experience in leadership both as an entrepreneur and a C-level executive. Growth has been his focus in serving his roles as CEO, CRO, EVP of sales, managing partner and business consultant from startups to Fortune 1000 firms. He specializes in all areas of human capital management. And you know your team members, your people are one of the most crucial parts of your successful organization. He is incredible. So with that said, he currently works as his day job is with Assured Partners in Nevada. Let's give it up for Rick Cassis. All right, now it's on to, I think, Alicia, you're going to get started, yes?
Can you guys hear me? Is that a good level of volume? Yeah? A little bit closer? Better? It always sounds to me like I'm yelling, so you tell me if I'm yelling at you. I'm yelling. Okay, so the critical importance of strategic planning. A lot of you probably know this, but if not, we'll just go through it real quick, right? So really, the essence of my expertise is efficiency, right? And efficiency always helps your bottom line, and it typically relates to quality as well. And strategic planning and efficiency go hand in hand, right? Okay, so why so critical? The Oxford Dictionary defines strategy as a plan of action designed to achieve a long-term or overall aim. So here's a favorite in the entrepreneur community. Let's say you want to sell your business for maximum profit so that you can go live on a beach somewhere, right? And hang out more with your grandkids, retire early, right? That's a lot of people's dream. But there's a lot of things probably in between where you want to go, right? So why so critical? Complexity, right? Anything that happens over a long period of time is inherently going to change, right? Something's going to change, and that means the plan that you started with is going to have to change with it, right? So you're going to have to know where you're at, right? It's not just about where you want to go, it's about where you are relative to that hyper-awareness of current state. And how are you going to know that, right? A lot of organizations, if you ask them where they are right now, they really can't tell you, right? So as an advisor, I will ask you pointed questions, not just about your financials, but about your operations, about your staffing, about what information you have available to clients at any time. And most people don't have it, right? So that's what we're always designing for, right? And that means when you're doing strategic planning, you're talking about really complex stuff, the overall, a lot of things that are related together, there are dependencies, interdependencies, right? Risk and constraints. And you have to understand how those things relate together and in what order you're going to approach them, right? So like if you're building a house, it's really important that you do some things before you do other things. Absolutely the same for strategic planning, right? And then there's reconciliation. So the question we're always trying to answer is it all done, right? What is all and what is done? If I ask you and you say, oh, we did these 6 things, and someone else is like, no, there's these other 6 things that have to be done, right? Well then, how do we agree on what all is? And how do we get back to that, right? That's a common problem in business all the time, right? And then what is done? Does done mean it's in this state? It's in this place, we enter the information, people know about it? Does done mean it's saved? It's somewhere and we all have access to it, someone's been alerted, it's been confirmed. So what is all and what is done? And how are you going to know that, right? When you have a very complex plan, it's much harder to know that, right? And especially when it's happening over a longer period of time, at any given point, where are you? And then there's risk. Along that whole continuum, there's risk, so you want to mitigate risk or obviate risk anytime you can. You want to minimize it. But if you realize risk or things change along the way, you want to be able to look at where you are, what you've accomplished so far, what's between you and where you want to go, and what impact that's going to have. What needs to change in relation to that? And if you don't have a good design of structure to manage your strategic plan, that's going to be pretty hard to do. And the probability that you're going to engage in wasteful activity, do things multiple times, miss something, not do something completely is very high, right? So strategic planning is very critical. Who can help? So strategic planning, particularly as related to a succession plan, as you'll see defined here by our friends at Pew, sorry, it involves a lot of different experts, right? And actually experts that aren't even on here. But if you go to your business attorney and you say, I want to sell, they're going to say, okay, well, here are all the things that you need. Let's talk about your valuation. Do you know what that is? And what are all the factors that go into that? And there are multiples for your valuation. And by the way, your business operations, the number of staff you have, the quality of staff you have, and all kinds of other things are part of that valuation. How do you maximize that valuation, right? That's going to involve your CPA, financial advisor, appraiser, etc. There's a lot of things to be solved for, and a lot of people have to work together to help you do that, right? And the right advisors are going to help you connect with the right advisors, right? So I know that's something that we at Peak Performance take pretty seriously. That's why events like this, right? We want to be connected to that right network of people to help you connect with that other right advisor. We might know a lot of great business attorneys, but which one's going to be the right one for you? That's really important, right? Anyway, so this is just part of the ecosystem and how complex it is. And that's a lot of stuff to orchestrate, by the way. Okay, so this is who I am. We already covered that. A good strategic plan. A lot of people think they know, but when you ask 20 questions, it turns out they're typically missing some things, right? So begin with a specific, achievable goal and objective, and something that's really important, the goal and the objective have to be related together meaningfully. You might think they relate together, right? If your goal is to sell your business for maximum profit so that you can retire early and do all the things you want to do, that only matters if that maximum profit is going to be enough, right? Is it actually going to get you where you want to go, right? Identify necessary and sufficient conditions. What are all those things that are going to be necessary to maximize your valuation, for instance? It's a lot of different stuff, and it's all situational and contextual. Consider optimal timing. Something Bob Glacier from BNY Mellon and I were just talking about, actually. You know, there's often optimal windows, and if you miss that window, it's better to wait. There's also things like if you have senior staff and a portion of them are imminently going to retire, that might change your timing because that definitely affects your valuation, right? The current situation against the desired future outcome and that constant awareness of that and how that changes. That differential analysis is really what defines your strategic plan. The orchestration, like I said before, that's so critical. And most people aren't very good at it, frankly. It's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of things, and even when you know all the things and you know all the right people, tracking and reconciling that and managing that effectively is often very difficult for people. They don't always know the tools that are available or how to structure the information correctly when they do that. And then you have to constantly be evaluating that plan. Is where you are relative to that plan, is the plan still meaningful or does something need to change, right? Has risk changed? Has the environment really changed? If you had a 10-year plan that you were about to realize in June of 2020, chances are that probably changed, right? Okay, all right. So something I'd like to talk about relative to this is that your goal and your objective are very important together. The goal is the what, the objective is the why. The why is way more important than the what. If you achieve the why, if you achieve retiring early, living on the beach, and hanging out more with your kids and grandkids, but you didn't sell your business for maximum profit, you still succeeded in your plan, right? But vice versa isn't true. If you sell your business for maximum profit but it actually doesn't get you to your objective, that's not what you want, right? But if you are very clear about your objective to your advisors, they can help you look out for things that you may not see, right? Opportunities, right? If they know that and you have them connected together, if you have a connected advisor network, right? Like your CBA might be optimizing you for tax, right? But that can actually undermine your valuation, right? So if your integrated network of advisors is working together, then you're going to get the best advice. And if they really understand why you're trying to do that, they're going to be able to see things you wouldn't even think of. Okay, so how can we help? Organize and facilitate the planning process. Having an objective view is actually quite helpful. Most of us, for our own problems, are too close to them. Having someone objective who can be critical to your best advantage. I like to say, I can be your best critic. is very helpful, helping you organize that information, structure it, put it together, and recommend tools, and connect you with other people who need to be involved is very helpful, right? So that's facilitating integrated planning. And then design that approach to manage execution. Like I said, if you start out with a great plan, but you can't manage the execution of that plan, it's not going to benefit you very much, right? Like there's a joke about, hey, do you have a business plan? Yeah, sure. It's in a binder on the shelf. Right? If you're not using that business plan, if you don't know where you're at relatively, it's not helping you. And then often a lot of tools and a lot of information that has to come together and constantly be reconciled for a strategic growth. So helping you design that approach and execute it is very important. And then along the way, coaching, advice, perspective, and useful tools. Like personally, I have my whole career has been about technology and leveraging technology effectively, right? So there's a million different types of software out there anymore, right? Which one is going to be right for you? Is going to get you maximum value for what you're going to spend? Is going to implement learning and teaching everybody in the organization, right? Having information like that available and kind of connecting it with people who are always looking for new great tools that we can leverage to find out that thing for you, the things that we know about are right, is actually very helpful as well. And that is my overview on strategic planning.
All right. Woo! Yes! Oksana or Rick? Who's next? Oksana.
Alicia did everything, so I didn't have to do anything. She's already told you everything you needed to know. But we're going to try to get it up on the screen again because obviously I don't know how to operate these items. But I am a merger and acquisition advisor, and typically I help founders sell their companies to private equity groups, to strategic companies. We tend to work with companies that have at least $1 million in EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. But I will tell you that it doesn't matter whether a business has a net income of $100,000 or a net income of $10 million. You all encounter the same problems. And actually, not long ago, I was at a seminar for 2 days on public companies, and 80% of what they spoke about the public companies and the challenges they're having, apply to us as well in the middle market and in the small business market. You can't get to where you want to go if you don't know where you're going. You've heard this time and time again. The second thing that comes into play is you can't get there if you don't know how much time you have. In a business, you never know how much time you have. Most of us think about death. Death is usually not the issue. Disability happens and divorce happen a lot faster than death tends to happen a lot more often, making you have to get rid of your company, sell your company. So because you can't predict these things, you have to operate your company as if it were for sale, even if it wasn't, and you want to have a company that everyone wants to buy, even though you're not selling it. And that involves strategic planning and thought. So let me tell you a very common, I call it an American story because of my name. What happens if you fail to exit? So my parents came to the United States from Ukraine just after World War II. That's a picture of my dad in Ukraine in Ivano-Frankivsk that was not bombed just recently. And that's a picture of my mother and her family boarding a ship in Bremerhaven coming to the United States. My father and his father, and my grandfather all became business owners in the United States. My grandfather was a printer. He was 61 years old, got a brain tumor, and died within 2 months. Nobody knew what to do with the company. It went on a fire sale. Now, my father's family was more successful. They opened up a meat market in New York City. My grandfather was a diplomaed butcher in the days in the 30s when you got diplomas for those kind of things. And that's actually their shop, and that's his diploma. It hangs in my office. It's about this big, and it's beautiful. So they operated a shop in Manhattan in New York City. And the business was very, very successful. This is an Easter Saturday. The line goes in the store, out the store, and down the block. It was a typical Good Friday in our business, which was one of the busiest businesses of the year. This is a picture from Gourmet Magazine. It's my grandfather, my father, my brother. They all worked in the company. Been around by the end by close to 50 years. We got a lot of press starting in 1967. This is 1975, the cover of the New York Times food section. Another one, 92, cover of the New York Times food section. Kept going. 2007, closed doors. Almost 50 years in business. Now I'm going to add what happened between 92 and 207 very quickly. In 203, I went to New York, talked to my brother and my sister-in-law, and said, you know, Dad's getting older. Do you want the company? How are we going to do this? And I'll tell you honestly, what my brother and sister-in-law heard is I've come to New York to make sure I didn't get cut out of the pie. Alicia hit it on the nose. When you're too close to it, you can't do it. You have to have an outside advisor help you. Had I been smart enough to bring an outside advisor, the outcome might have been different. I went to my dad and said, Dad, Mom, what do you want to do here? And my father gave me a deer in the headlights look. I never thought about it. When I took over from my father early on in the 60s or 70s, I became the family patriarch. So I just took over the whole family, not only the business. Things are different today. And because after that we never had a conversation, a week before my brother, 6 weeks before my brother did it, he called me up and said, I've just announced we're closing doors. End of story. 50 years of history, Gourmet Magazine, New York Times. I mean, books, Emeril Lagasse, James Beard. I'm in all of them. They're in all of them. But we didn't do it. Now, this would have been painful, but there was more to it. What could have been had we planned, and I'm not saying we would have planned this, but 208, Martha Stewart, who has a child shopped in the store and was an old customer, decided that she missed our hams, which she got every Easter. So she picked him up and started thinking about it, and she recreated these legendary hams, not identically. And guess what? She decided to recapture it and sold them in Kirkland hams at Costco. So we have shut doors because we didn't plan, and Martha Stewart, who is always planning and thinking, was in Costco. So I'm not suggesting by any means that my family would have decided to go to Costco, but had they had a plan, they could have sold, they could have realized revenues, that an income that they no longer had. And this is something very important for all of you as you go through your businesses. Now, I don't intend to go through every step, but some of the things that you come into planning so that when you do decide to sell, Alicia has hit on some of them, and I know Rachel you will too. We'll start with financials. You have to have financials that make sense, that are understandable, and that are clean. For the 3 years at least, before you contemplate going to market, pay the tax man as much as you possibly can. Stop charging your home toilet paper to your business, because your business is going to sell on a multiple of your bottom line, and you want your bottom line to be as clean as possible. While I can turn around and say, the airplane is really not necessary for the business, you can fly commercial, so we can take that out. If you come and tell me that all these meals and entertainments for the past 3 years are really personal, I'm going to say I can't put them back in because you can't know whether that led to business or not. So really thoughtfully think through how you run your financials. A coach can help. The other item is make sure you have a management team. A team in place that if something happens to you, whether you're selling or not, those people can carry on the business for a certain period of time before they bring in another help. This increases the value of your business. When a business buyer comes in to purchase your business, they want to know that they can at least replicate your results. Meaning they want confidence that once you walk out that door, that they can do what you did. Flip side of that is they want to know that the risk is low, that they will fail. A strong strategic plan, help put together with a strategic coach, can help de-risk your business and give that buyer the confidence. And when a buyer has confidence, your chances of selling are much better.
Do I need this? Okay. Everybody stand up and rub shoulders in the person they say. We're supposed to be cocktails and conversations, and I'm really uncomfortable with PowerPoint. I'm gonna pull up a chair. We're gonna have conversations, and my goal is to really take what these doctors of strategic planning have talked about from a global level and bring it down to just one specific system within a company and the need for strategic planning in all areas of the company. So one of my expertise is human capital management. What is human capital management? What's human capital? Your turn. People. It's all the people stuff. Right? You have money capital, and then you have people capital. Right? And the people capital cost you money and make you money. Right? So human capital management, what I'm going to talk about is just a roadmap of strategic planning within the overall business. Right? And that's one of the, what other systems other than your people systems exist in your business? I'm definitely one here. You want that one? Is wrong with the sheet? Was it? Okay, that's the operation side. So whatever you are in business for, it's the operations or expertise or your product. Other systems. Money. Your financial systems. All of your financial systems have to be taken care of, and then you can have a strategic plan for your financial systems, for your operational systems, and then you have to go out and bring in customers. So your sales systems, right? But in all of those systems, technology today is another system within your business. Each one of those can have their own separate strategic plan inside of a big overall strategic plan, right? Alicia said, as you sit down to plan, you have to start with the why. The Simon Sinek book, right? Start with why, right? Each one of these things, why? Why are you hiring someone? Why are you providing them benefits? Why are you raising capital in the financial system? Why are you choosing a CPA and not doing it yourself on purpose? Right? All of these take strategic planning within your overall strategic plan. So I just wanted to go through by illustrating how intricate each one of those systems are. And then I'm going to bring them back, because at the end you're going to say, my company doesn't need all that. It's too complicated. It's too granular. Right? And then I'm going to come back at the end and say, no matter what size your company is, you have to be thinking strategically before the year starts about all of these things. And you need to do it in human capital, you need to do it in your operations, you need to do it in your financial, and you need to do it in your technology. And you are the overall strategic planner. And what Alicia also and Oksana talked about is bringing people in to the areas that you are not expert in. And once again, so on the human capital management side, we're going to just run through this. Your greatest asset or your greatest liability. The minute you hire your first person, right, what is your strategic plan about your human capital? I didn't bring up the topic. I was just going to yell to Alexa on the your people, human capital. I would venture to say if you have employees, it is the number one expense in your company. Right? And it's not just salary that you pay. But according to the Society for Human Resource Management, next year in your strategic plan, 2023, the minimum increase of what you spend over 2022 will be 25% if you're doing it right. If you have a strategic plan. If you don't, it can cost you 50% increase, 100% increase.
plan or being reactive. So what are the costs of a single employee? Obviously, it's the salary. But what else do you have to plan for? Payroll taxes, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, benefits, a retirement plan, job-related expenses, their business expenses, their clothing, their equipment, right? The workspace, the desk, the electricity, the phone, and also what you're allocating to your overall HR department. What are some of the additional costs that go into employing one person, right? The cost to recruit and find that person, even if it's just you, going on Indeed, right? A recruiter, running a background check so you don't get an ex-murderer walking in the door, right? A drug test, right? This is, cannabis still can be tested for in Las Vegas, right? Onboard, how do you bring them onto your company? What type of system and records are you keeping in case any type of government agency asks you about it? Training, LMS stands for your learning management system, right? And then also your manager's time. So you're lucky to do all of these things and do it efficiently because you had a strategic plan. And then we said 25% minimum increase year over year. What about turnover? Again, the Society for Human Resource Management says minimum of 20% cost of all of those things we talked about, recruiting, training, bringing them on board, paying their taxes, and managing them, minimum of 25% a cost to replace that position, that staff position. Minimum of 50% for a manager. Right? And then if you get into an executive, to find the right executive is going to cost you at least equal to that person's salary, and if that person leaves. And it said that there's 41% of the employees that were hired in 2020, 40% were gone in less than 90 days in 2021. Then not only the cost of having the employee, but once that employee puts your shirt on and goes out into the public, they present a risk to you. And all of the risks of lawsuits for harassment, you hear about it, Me Too, discrimination, workplace violence. Somebody in the room actually creates programs to educate for workplace violence, right? Unlawful termination, when you have to fire them if you don't do it right. And then all the government agencies that want to fine you for things that you all you want to do is hire one employee. That being said, what we get involved with, and once again, we talk about finance, we talk about operations, we talk about human capital management and people, we talk about technology. So a good business advisor, and it was mentioned in all three of the talks, can't be expert in everything. So, in everything that we talked about for one employee, we need human resource expertise to handle compliance, handbooks, job descriptions, proactive training, conflict resolution when the second employee fights with the first employee. We need legal resources, to get it done right. And you want to know what the world is paying for that position within your company so that you can pay fairly and attract a good guy, not a bad guy, or a good guy, not a bad guy. So the human resource function needs to be strategically planned. Employee benefits. Anybody ever plan or shop for benefits for their employees? Usually what happens every year is you wait for the renewal and you put on the hospital gown and the thing in the back is wide open and say, okay, give me my increase. Right? And if all you do is sit around and wait for that renewal and don't do anything all year round, that increase is very large, and that's how most people who don't plan suffer a very large expense. Right? So all through employee benefits. What should I contribute to my employee? What should they pay for on their own? How do I offer a good benefit package to get the guy that I want from my competitor? I want him to work for me and not for them. Okay? So all of those things in employee benefits need a certain level of expertise and planning, not just when you're shopping that day, but going into 2023. Technology, a plan for how you don't have to do all the work anymore, but you can let technology do the work. That plan may be over 30 days, a year, 5 years, but setting up a strategic plan for your technology. And then liability, workers' comp. Liability, employer practices. Somebody wants to sue me for sexual harassment because I told them they look nice to me. And they need a lottery ticket, and they don't want to work anymore. They just want to sue me because they know they can get a good payout from suing an executive. Workers' comp, reviewing your workers' comp, making sure you have a safety program in place so that people don't have workers' comp claims, right? And then also protecting everybody's privacy in networks. So I just did a speed through a full human capital management, how we handle employees within a company, small or large. And the point being is whether you hire your first employee or you have thousands of employees, you still have to touch all of these things because as a business owner, you're responsible for everything, right? And so the point, what's the point of strategic planning for 2023? Right? There are resources, advisors available in every discipline. And the way that you set up, and someone like Alicia, and Oksana, and myself, and Peak Performance Partners will scale in their advisory to you holistically, will scale what you need and what your business needs so that you don't miss any of these pieces. So that, again, this was a specific example to a greater talk of what happened today, and that's what we got.
There you go. Patrick? Patrick, would you ready? Alicia, we'll get you all come to the very front. All right. All right, now we get to the part where I like to refer to it as stump and jump. No offense to you people out here. Questions. We get to ask them questions. Questions from the experts. All right. Yes, please.
What would you guys say is the best way to evaluate successful?
What is the best way to evaluate? You know, let me have one of these, and then you can have to trade there. All right.
What would you guys say is the best way to evaluate a good strategic plan?
I would suggest that a plan is unique to each and every business, and it's not static. It is a plan that changes almost weekly, daily as situation change. It has to be a picture of what you intend to achieve in the long term being 2-3 years. It has to keep in mind what you want to achieve in the end. Do you want to sell to your family? Do you want to give it to your family? Do you want to sell to your employees? It has to contemplate that from the very start. It may change over time, but then it has to break down to what your objectives and goals are in the short term. 3-month spurts, 6-month spurts. You underestimate what you can achieve over a longer period of time, and you overestimate what you can achieve in a shorter period of time. But if you don't have any of those goals and objectives, you won't achieve them at all.
Awesome, thank you. All right, another question? Oh, you got to. Alicia's got something to say.
I would say that that's why I did that basic overview, right? Because
Speak up, you're whispering.
that's why I did that basic overview. Those 6 things, right? Do you have a clear objective and goal? What is your vision and why is that your vision? Oftentimes when I ask people that question, their answer is generic. It needs to be very specific, right? And you need time to think about that. You need to do the thought work, right? And that's what, it's funny because entrepreneurs typically are biased toward action. a lot of entrepreneurs are a bit ADHD, if I do say so myself. and they're not typically ones to sit down and really think about it. But if everything that you're going to do is only valuable if you know why you're going to do it, you need to take the time to think about that, right? But that 6-step overview, even if it's not perfect, if you hit all 6 of those steps and you just keep aiming for it, you're going to do pretty well, right? And to her point, to Oksana's point, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? But to my point, the order of operations, sorry, I mean, that really matters. And I mean, honestly, I think that's the value of working with an advisor. Even for myself, I wouldn't create my own strategic plan without asking for help from the outside, because I know I'm too close to it. I see it all day, every day, right? But if you hit those 6 things and you're really trying hard to get there, do whatever you can and seek advisement, even if it's from your friends, even if it's from other entrepreneurs. Look, the top boards are peer advisory boards for a reason, because those people, those other people on your board, have a lot of value to offer you, right? Many of them are serial entrepreneurs. Many of them have encountered things that you've never seen before yet, or encountered situations you haven't seen yet. Just because you've seen one problem state doesn't mean you've seen every problem state, right? So there's a lot of value in seeking outside advice. I would say fundamentally, that's it. Those 6 things, and check it with other people.
Thank you.
I just have a couple things that I want to grab out of the air. One is a quote that Patrick says often. Are you working on your business or are you working in your business? Right? It starts with stepping away and working on your business. Then something that Oksana said is you want to think of an exit strategy. What is it going to look like when I sell this business, when I pass it on, what I want to build it to? And then she said, what if I had to sell it today? Right? And the next thing I want to say is a strategic plan needs to be alive and cyclical and rinse and repeat and constantly reevaluate.
All right, great answers. Thank you all. Another question. Bartender's got a question. Just kidding. Come on, somebody's got to have another question. Question. Let me, by show of hands, how many in here have a strategic plan that you created for 2022? We got a couple. All right, we got a couple. All right. How many believe that you should have a strategic plan for 2023? Show of hands. Okay. So what? How do you get from here to there? I guess that's my question. Right? How do you get from? All right. We believe we gotta have one. We have 2.5 months to get one. How do you get from there, from here to there? Yeah.
By hiring peak performance partners.
Right answer.
All right. I knew I had to pay that off. No. But truly, like, how do you get past that hurdle, right? I think that's the thing is because we sat down actually yesterday to finish our calendar for the rest of the year, and we were literally like, we don't have any time, right? And part of that calendaring is our own strategic 2-day strategic planning event, right, for ourselves. And so what are, I guess, but let's ask these guys some more questions. Go ahead, Rick. Or how do you guys recommend, I'm going to ask these group. How do you guys set up your strategic planning, and what's that process look like?
Can I answer that after I ask the question? Does anybody in the room not need a strategic plan? Do not need. Anybody in the room that's in business, do you not need a strategic plan?
There we go. We got one. Well, there's always one in every crowd. See? Yes. Go answer it. But you got to put the mic up to your mouth.
So, I'm not the first person to jump on stage. I think your 2023 plan should begin with a review of 2022, right? Just do a basic retrospective, right? what went well, what didn't go well, what would you do differently, right? You have an idea of where you wanted to be or where you were trying to go in 2022, even if you don't have a strategic plans, right? Unless you're just surviving, right? And surviving is fine if you just want to keep treading water for the rest of your life, that's great. But if you have an aim, it's better, right? You have something to measure against, and that's energizing, right? So if you do a basic evaluation of how you think 2022 went and how you want 2023 to be different, I think that's a very good start, right? And then how can you make that happen? What could you possibly do? Does that mean more sales? Does that mean more efficiency, right? Does it mean less risk? Is it cost management or is it value optimization, right? One mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make is they think about cost, but to the detriment of value, right? So working with advisors can seem cost prohibitive, and I understand that. But if the value far exceeds the cost, then it isn't cost prohibitive. It's just intimidating to approach, right? But the right advisor is going to help you do that.
Can I ask something? I want to ask you a question. As we have this conversation on the way in here, right? One year was to be successful. Everybody's hands should go up. Your hands not if you're right. One year would say you're successful. I'm very successful. Is that right? Right. Here's a key, an absolute key trait of a very, very successful person. Very successful people stop negotiating cost and start negotiating value. If a lot of your business decisions, right, your strategies, keep saying, hey, how much does it cost, how much does it cost, how much does it cost? If that's your language, right, you have to take the internal audit here. If that is your language, I actually challenge you and ask, are you really as successful as you think you are? Right? Successful people start saying, hey, what's the value? What is that value?
I want to add something to that, okay? So, to my Fortune 10 experience, I've worked with multiple divisions of GE, right? One of the areas of GE they're working with was GE Appliances, and we took some of their processes down for their lab management down from days and weeks and months to seconds and hours and minutes, okay? And this is across hundreds of different products and thousands of different types of products within those tiers, right? And 20 to 30 battery tests per product. Okay, so think about that from a mathematical point of view, right? How many transactions is that when you think about it from a labor cost perspective? Okay, so value versus cost, right? And the same is true just by most organizations can really benefit by doing simple things, by doing less, frankly, not doing more, by not investing in huge implementations that don't understand why they're investing and what they're getting out of it. And the right advisor is going to tell you that, right? The right advisor is going to say, hold on, is that a worthwhile investment? Where's the value in it? And what are you going to get out of it, right? Or could you do something simpler? Frankly, I often advise my clients to begin by evaluating their communication. So when you're onboarding employees, how easy are you making it for them to be successful, to understand your vision, to understand where they play in it, and to understand who else is playing in that sandbox, and how to leverage that talent along with them? If I ask you, when you're sitting at the table with your management team, or any table sitting together, if I ask you, why are you sitting at this table? And why is everybody else sitting at this table? If I ask everybody that same question, and you write down your answers and we throw them into a bowl, and we compare Bob, Sally, Jim, Joe, Tiffany, Oksana, right? How much parity is there going to be in those answers? If I say this is why I'm sitting at the table, is that going to match what everybody else says at the table, right? Is what everybody says at the table about why Bob's at the table going to match, or are they going to be different? Because if you don't have parity, then they don't know what their responsibilities are or who to go to. who is the right person to talk to? And that means that your communication is inefficient. That means things are probably getting missed. That means you're probably having conversations multiple times that you shouldn't need to have, right? So simple things can change everything, right? It's not always about some grand 5-step plan. It's really about simplifying, and that can be huge, right? So a client I'm working with right now, I said, how do you know if it's all done? They don't even know what all is. Not even all the things that they have to do. If I ask any one person, they have nothing to reconcile to. It's not getting captured anywhere. So the first thing we did is we said, let's capture it all. And then let's make it visible for everybody, and let's talk about who's responsible with that. Do you know what the difference is in a month? Relief, respect, recognition, because now they understand how it's all working together. So simple things can be a big difference.
Perfect. Great to hear.
I rudely interrupted Patrick and I didn't answer his question with some sort of puke that I puked out. I thought it was wrong and I can't even remember. So I want to answer Patrick's question, which was how do I plan? And how do I do my 2023 plan? And it's the same as the basics that we learn through our coaching other customers and clients. So how many have heard of a DISC analysis? DISC analysis is a personality profile of strengths and weaknesses. And the next thing was that Simon Sinek book is I think about why am I doing what I'm doing and what are my goals. The next thing I do, who has heard of a SWOT analysis? Right? SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Right? Who's heard of SMART goals? Right? Specific, measurable, attainable, right? So these are the components of how I plan. At first I sit down and ask myself, what is on one slide and why? Then, believe it or not, I even ask my wife, what am I doing? Why? And how much? That's what we need, right? How much do you want? And then we go from there. And once I have my why, I make SMART goals and specific goals with tactics to try to go after what we agree upon. And then we do an analysis of our strengths and weaknesses, right? What our opportunities are and what's going to trip us up. And those little components are how I take my strategic plan from my home, from my family, to my business, and even to my budget.
Awesome, thank you. All right, any other questions? Yes, Glenn.
I'm just curious, what would you say would be the difference between a basic business plan for a brand new startup versus what you guys are talking about with a strategic plan for an already developed company and how to measure progress and things like that that you guys are discussing?
Well, let's start when you're starting a company, you have to understand why you're starting it and what you want out of it in the end. No different than a company that's operational. You may add more components as the company gets more complex, but you still have goals, you still have objectives, you still have different areas in the company that have to function, and you have to figure out how to do them. I'm going to add one more thing. When you come to these types of meetings, CEO meetings, any similar seminars, you hear tidbits, and you hear tidbits that make a lot of sense. But only if you are working with a group that helps develop the strategic plans, helps you develop your own. Nobody can develop a strategic plan for you. Do you get the comprehensive picture? So taking that beautiful slide, and I love that 16-point human resource slide, and they're all perfect points. But if you take that and you work your strategic human resource slide based on that, you forgot about operations, you forgot about this, you forgot about that. So it has to be a comprehensive process, and it's comprehensive for a startup, and it's comprehensive for an established company. You're looking at employee issues if you have one employee, you're looking at employee issues if you have 10, if you have 1,000. it might be on a smaller scale and you might increase the complexity as you grow, but the concept is still the same. How do I get there? What am I going to do in the next 3 months? Am I looking at my numbers? Am I looking at everything that needs to be on a consistent basis to know if I'm getting to my 3-month goal?
Awesome, thank you.
I would say that the difference is that when you're starting out, you don't have a baseline, right? You don't have anything to measure things, right? You have an aspiration and an intention, and you're gonna design an experiment, and you're gonna execute it, and you're gonna see how close or how far away you are, right? And sometimes you kill it, and that creates different problems. and sometimes you don't need it, or sometimes you do really well in one area and not in another area, right? But how do you know how well you're doing? The question I always ask my clients is, how do you prove improvement? We want to do better. Okay, well, what does that mean? What do you measure? What do you know, right? What can you know? Out of what can you know, what do you know? And how are you going to solve for what you can know that you don't know? And what are you going to do with that information, right? So, analysis is a comparative endeavor, right? And strategy is also a comparative endeavor. It's an analytical endeavor, right? So, when you begin, you have an aim, set your aim, try to hit your aim, and then wherever you land, design another experiment, right? Success is algebraic. You design to solve for one thing, and if you have a strategic plan, you're designing to solve for this that leads to that, you plug into that, to plug into this, to plug into that. And it's gonna change. So don't be surprised if it changes. Be okay if it changes, but practice empiricism. I would say that's the best thing that you can do. But the difference between starting out and being up and running is having a baseline or not having a baseline, especially if you're a disruptor, right? If you're doing something no one's ever done before, what are you going to measure against, right? And we all know that, right? But if you're successful, if you're doing something that already exists, go out there. If you want to be successful, and find out what's happening in the market and try to do that, right? And then appreciate and value what you learn along the way. And that will make you appreciate what other people have done.
Yeah, and I would say this on the startup side. If you're starting up an organization, what you want is, there's a book called Lean Startup, and really this is the cycle. It's start, action, measure, adjust. Action, measure, adjust. And the faster you can get through that cycle, the more successful you're going to be. And it really is this. We see a lot of people work, planning. And we're like, hey, eventually, you gotta get to that action. You gotta go.
What I heard was the difference between a business plan and a strategic plan. Every time I've done a business plan, it's been for somebody else's why. It's been for a lender, it's been for financing, it's been for a CEO that I was accomplishing their goals, and I had to show my plan. And a strategic plan was mine. It was mine of the tactics, the rinse and repeat that Patrick just spoke about. So they're used synonymously a lot, but a business plan is the baseline that Alicia talked about, and the strategic plan is my running and gun.
All right, any other questions? We got one. Employee B in the house.
Actually, a pretty big house, a little guy, but with the challenges of small business, especially what they're having today, supply chain issues, the cost of goods and services, finding and keeping and retaining employment. When you're working with a business, what strategy do you utilize to get them to stop focusing on the emergent long enough to focus on the important? Because today's small businesses are so pulled apart. And I've worked with some of the companies you guys work with, and you're very successful in that. So a little insight would be appreciated.
I will give you a chance to start.
I'm all over the place.
So the question I always ask my clients is, what's necessary and what's meaningful? And if it's neither necessary or meaningful, right? Because people have a lot of trouble understanding important versus urgent, right? Let's take it off the table. It's either necessary or it's meaningful. Necessary trumps meaningful, right? We'll do that first. Because it's not all the things that you have to do, it's what's most important to do right now. So the answer to your question is helping them learn how to manage all the things that they have to do and prioritize it, and the heuristics to use in order to prioritize it, right? Because the art of efficiency is the art of not doing what doesn't need to be done at all or yet, right? So what's most important right now? And one of the biggest issues that I see in businesses large and small is that people, as soon as they recognize something, they want to action it. They're not zooming out and thinking about where does that fit in the relative priority, how do these things relate, right? Because often, if you start actioning something, you can do something that, by virtue of what you do, actually constrains your next other future choices, right? You're not thinking about it from a strategic point of view. And so it's really important that you're just cataloging all the time, and you're prioritizing that catalog, and you're evaluating it relative to each other, and you're saying what's most time critical, what has order of operations dependencies, and what's necessary versus meaningful. So what's most important for the business, what's most important for you, and you, and you, and you, and you, relative to the business. And if, by the way, something blocks that, how do we know what the next thing we should shift to is, right? Because if you know what's most important right now and that gets blocked, but you don't know what's important next, that's waste, that's lag, right? And if you're not making the best use of your time, you're missing the opportunities for other things.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to leave you guys with one thing, and Lester, you can't tell this. What is the 3 greatest threats to rock climbing? 3 greatest threats to a rock climber. Fall, we've heard that. The ground, yeah, I heard that one too. Now, the 3 greatest threats are this. Fatigue is number 1. Fear is number 2. Hesitation is number 3. Kind of sounds similar to running a business, doesn't it? So I'm going to leave you guys with that, but first off, if you guys will put your hands together, thank you again for the panel. We've got Rick, Oksana, and Alicia. They're going to be around for a little while, except Alicia, she's got to be whisked off to the airport. But stick around and continue to talk to everybody.
So we have one last teaser for next month's CEO event. Our after conversations. We're going to play something for you guys real quick to bear with us. And we do want to offer a very something special. So for you, please share this with the other business owners. Our firm is passionate about the strategic planning. We do it with ourselves. We actually do it quarterly. We're offering a very, very special. We're going to have our very first strategic planning conference. Right now, we're going to open it up to about 5 businesses. We might open it up to more. We're going to be a 2-day session coming up in December. So if anybody's interested in that, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Or if you know any other businesses, owners, friends, and family members that are like, hey, you could really use a strategic plan, but they're kind of forest for the trees. We are doing it. This is our first year, so we're going to typically instead of what we would normally charge, we're going to be offering some incredible specials and make it really valuable and have a lot of connection. So with that said, I'd like to believe whenever we're ready, you guys cover.
Hey everybody, Rick with Peak Performance Partners. I have a secret for you. Are you listening? Are you ready? Everything revolves around sales. You know, you can have the greatest service in the world or the greatest product, but if you're not selling it, if people aren't buying it, you have no company. I want to invite you out to our CEO Cocktails and Conversations event November 17th at the Serving Club. It's going to be the last one we have of this year before we pick that up next year, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be sharing with you tips and tricks to help move the needle in your company for you and your team now. And I'm going to show you how to do it in a way that builds a relationship and brings value for your clients, your prospects, for this community. Right? I've sold millions in products and services, and I want to share some things that can help have a huge impact for your team. Come on out, come meet some new people, come build community with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be seeing you soon. Thanks for coming.